Hey, good afternoon. What's going on? It's so lovely to see you all. Happy Tuesday morning. All right, so ready to get down and dirty? Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of losing. So if you're tired of losing, stick with me because we're going to rock it through some stuff. And a lot of this stuff you've heard, a lot of you are using. But what I want to make sure that we cover this morning is the underlying idea that the market has shifted again, and we can't now be picking and choosing from this list. It's almost like an all or nothing scenario. We have to start having different conversations with our buyers to make sure that they are ready to play to win. My goal today, just so you know, hold on, we have a whole lot of people pouring into the waiting room here. My goal today is to have you leave here with confidence that you can start writing offers that will win 80% of the time or better. That's my target here. It's not that we're winning every other one, that 50% is good enough, that 80% of the offers that you write are accepted. And I know that for some of you who are out there writing offers like crazy, that seems like a ridiculously high number. I get it. I get it. Debbie Orr is so enticed by this that she's downing a half gallon of ice cream as we speak.
Not ice cream, yogurt.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's whatever. my heavy fat yogurt.
Hey, oh, that's right. Okay, you might as well just get out a half gallon of ice cream. So here's where I'd like to start. I'd like to start by doing just kind of a quick review of all the strategies that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. And when I say quick review, I'm going to give you a list. And if we want to kind of circle back and touch on any one of those, we can certainly do that. But I want to get through that list to kind of set a foundation for us all, and then really talk about money. Because one of the things that we're seeing shifting more than anything right now is the money it takes to win. And so we've got to have real confidence with our buyers that they have the money to use to win. And we're going to give you some data around what we've been seeing, and then talk a little bit more about what else we're doing to try and get you better intel so that you can make really great decisions with your buyers. So the buyer strategies that we have in the last 6 to 12 months or so become kind of used to using are these. And if I'm missing any of them, please put it in the chat or unmute, and let's make sure that this list is complete so that you have all the strategies that you need in one big long list. So in no particular order, waiving the appraisal contingency, or having some kind of an appraisal gap strategy, right? Where the buyer is going to make up some of that difference or all of that difference. Waiving inspection contingencies, which, by the way, just so we're clear, is different than waiving the inspection. Just so we're all on the same page about that. Waiving the inspection contingency. Waiving the mortgage contingency, which is different than not getting a mortgage. So waiving those contingencies. Paying cash and then doing delayed financing on the tail end, right? Are you having those conversations with your buyers? Do they have an ability to pay cash and then finance it right after the closing? I think somebody's doing a delayed financing lunch thing on Friday. I think Kristen is doing that on Friday. So if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of delayed financing, zoom into that and she'll give you some more info on that. Setting the inspection up for the following day that you're making the offer so that all the seller has to do is say yes to you and bam, you're in an inspection scenario, right? Are you doing that? Putting down more than the 1% up front. We've talked about making that 1% check a 10% check or a 20% check, or just making it a flat number of, putting down $20,000 so that the seller looks at the buyer as having more confidence because they have more quote unquote at risk. Making the binder money, that same binder money, non-refundable. Have you tried that? Right? Because we've talked about that in the past. What if that money just was non-refundable? Does it show the seller more commitment? Using the seller's closing date as your closing date, or having flexibility in the closing date. Offering or allowing the seller to stay in the home till they find suitable housing, either via a rent back or allowing them to stay in the home for free. Offering to pay the seller's closing costs, the conveyance taxes, the attorney's fees. Right? Is that another strategy you've looked at or used? Offering to pay the buy side commission to the buyer's agent. That's you in this scenario, right? So what if in the structuring of the transaction, your buyers didn't want to confuse the commission payment, and so the sellers got to keep that and put that in their pocket, which elevates their offer a bit, and they pay you directly? Have you thought about that? Have buyers thought about offering to pay the entire commission? I know some have, because I've seen some of those deals where the buyer's making their offer and they're covering the commissions instead of the sellers. Now some of you are asking, well, why not just offer more money? Because offering more money doesn't have you stand out. Doing the no commissions thing with this much money has you stand out. And oh, by the way, the answer to win 80% or more of the time might be both. It might be pay more money and offer to pay the commissions. Use escalation clauses to make sure that you're coming out on top in competitive scenarios. Now I'm going to take a slight pause here for a minute. I know what some of you are going to say. Some of you are going to say, well, people aren't accepting escalation clauses anymore. That's only partially true. We went through a period of time last summer where it seemed like every listing agent put a moratorium on escalation clauses. I can tell you that some of your colleagues, look around your Brady Bunch little Zoom room here, and either Peter Brady or Cindy Brady or Ann B. Davis as Alice has used an escalation clause in the last couple of months and used it to win. So listing agents walked away from them for a little while, and now we're seeing them come back into play. So don't think that last fall's rules still apply today, because what I'm noticing is that every rule we thought was a rule prior to January 1st is now out the window, and there's a whole new set of rules, which is why we're having this conversation today. Are you looking at homes that are 10 to 20% below the max price, or at least below the comfort level price of where your buyers can afford? Because if you're not, everyone's wasting a whole lot of time. We'll talk about that again in a minute, right? You have to save them room to go and offer way higher. And so if they can afford 500 and you're showing them 475 to 495 houses, guess what? You and they are going to be beating your head against the wall. You might as well stay home and just do that. Find a nice brick fireplace and beat your head against the wall all afternoon, because it will feel better than what you're going to go through with buyers who don't have the funds to overbid on things. And you might as well invite the buyers along with you. They can bang their head on the other side of the chimney while you're at it, right? So that's kind of a big, long list of all of the strategies that in the last 6 to 12 months we've been putting in play and using to win offers. And yet, many of you in the last 60 to 75 days or so are struggling even with all of those to get your offers accepted. And so I want to talk a little bit with you about, and I promise, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk for another 10 or 12 minutes, and then we're going to open this up so that you can all just talk to each other and ask questions and mastermind around what these, how you're using these, and who's doing great things, and what didn't I put on that list, and all that good stuff. But I want to have a conversation to set the stage first about money. Because one of the strategies that many of you are really reluctant to discuss with your buyers is the concept of spending more money. So the intel that I'm receiving, both from inside listing agents, many of you saw maybe that I just put out a blast about a half hour ago, asking for very specific information from any of you who have listed property in the last 75 days. I want a whole bunch of information so that I can compile that and turn it around and get it back to you about what listing agents are seeing from their sellers so that you have an inside track on that. In the interim, as I'm gathering more of that data, I'm going to give you data that I've just in talking with a lot of you keeps coming up. So, two things on that. The first is that you've got, in order to be competitive, you've got to have that right mix of terms that we just went through. Pretty much everything that list we just talked about, that's all the terms side of things. And so what if you're going in with your inspections and your appraisals and your mortgage contingencies and everything's all the way it used to look, forgive me, but for all intents and purposes, you're already out. You might as well stay home, because there are far too many buyers who are willing to waive stuff and deliver terms that are more favorable to the seller. So that to me is just another, it's an expectation setting conversation with your buyers so that they understand the arena they're going to fight in. Because that's what this is, right? You're literally preparing gladiators. You are sitting across the table from the Russell Crowes of the buyer world. And you just have to figure out how to help them understand that they are entering into an arena that could well be a bloodbath. And if they don't bring the right weapons and wear the right protective clothing, they're going to get slaughtered. And many of you understand what that feels like, right? Because you feel like you're right there with them, just continuing to lose. So here's the money conversation. The money conversation says that if you are not writing offers that are minimally 10% over the asking price, you're wasting your time. The last number of buyers agents and listing agents that I have had discussions with are telling me that in the last couple of weeks, the winning transactions, the winning offers have been closer to 20%. We had a 19%, we had a 24%, we had a 21%, 20% over the asking price. Right, and so in a competitive scenario, if you're writing an offer for 5% over the asking price, or even worse, if you're still having discussions about should we do $5,000 or $10,000 over the asking price? Guys, if you're having discussions about thousands of dollars over the asking price, you're missing the boat. You're missing the point. You have to be having conversations about percentages over the asking price. And I'm here to tell you today that if you're not writing offers that minimally have 10% or more over the asking price, you are likely going to lose. And what's scarier is that you're likely not even going to get looked at. Right? I have reports back from listing agents right now who are sitting on top of 20 offers, 30 offers, and 5 of them are being considered. Because there are a couple that came in at asking price. Can you imagine that? I hope you all think that's about as dumb as like a box of rocks. Like asking price, the asking price today is the minimum expectation that the seller has for the sale of their home. The minimum expectation. If you're not saying that to your buyers, you should write that down and make them all t-shirts. Make them wear those t-shirts when you go out and show them property. And if they forget about it, have them look at each other or look down. Maybe you could print the t-shirt so it's upside down. So when they're looking down on it, they can see the definition of asking price, the minimum expectation that the seller has. The asking price today is a starting point, not an ending point. Now remember, before all of this craziness in the market, we came from almost a decade of working with offers where your buyers were able to write offers for 5 or 10% under the asking price and then hope to kind of find a way to work out something in between. Those are not those days. right? We don't live in those times right now. We live in times that say, now if you're writing offers that are at asking price, you might as well, like, don't iron the shirt, stay home, right? So a lot of listing agents, right? And so this is some more intel that I've gathered to give you. A lot of listing agents are starting to group offers with their seller clients. There's group number one, which are the 5 or so that we're actually going to look at, because between the 15 to 20% over asking and all the terms, these are the 5 that, you know what, there's no reason we can't choose from one of these 5. Then there's group 2 that, just in case a meteor falls out of the sky and all 5 of those group 1 people happen to be eating in the exact same restaurant at the exact same time and are all no longer in the running, that we might go back to. Except if we go back to group number 2, we're just going to ask them for better terms and more money, because group 1 already showed us that they were willing to do that. And then there's group 3, which is I wrote the offer for at or below the list price, or even 0 to 5 or 8% above the list price, they're just not getting the time of day. Those are the extras. Like, we're not going to bother with those because it's just way too much paper to handle, right? So they're grouping them. And so the question to ask your buyers is, which group do you want to be in? Now, for those of you who have been book clubbing, where's my here we go, book clubbing the Shift book with us the last couple of weeks, you know that this past week we went through tactic number whatever it is, and we were going over the graphs for the tale of 2 markets. I just put it on the screen. So as we speak, it should be ready by the end of the day. We are adapting this graph for you so that you can use it to show your buyers. And instead of in the market and out of the market, it's going to be in the running and out of the running, right? So you're either in the running for a yes, or you're just out of it. And the numbers along the bottom are going to show very specifically, from a pricing perspective, you're in the market when you're minimally 10% above the asking price. And along the other axis, we're going to put contingencies, so that people understand that the more contingencies that they have, well, let me restate that, the fewer contingencies they have, the better their offer will be received. And so what you'll have is a version of this graph that you can show buyers that says, when you are minimally 10% above the asking price in your offer price and have the fewest contingencies possible in terms of terms, that's how you get into that lower left-hand corner where you're in the running. It doesn't even mean that you're the winner. It means you're in the running. And so the other thing we're doing is at the tiny little bottom there, we're going to make one other little adjustment, and we're going to have a W for the winner. And that's going to say 20% and 0 contingencies if you really want to win. So we're looking to make this graphically available to you to show your buyers, to help explain what it is we're talking about. Does that make sense to everybody? So stay tuned for that. It should be ready by the end of the day, and we're going to blast that out to everybody so you can begin using that right away. The other thing to remember about this conversation is utilizing the MLS to your advantage. Don't just tell buyers what they have to do. You have to show them. If you're not showing them, all they hear is you saying, I want to make money. And it's regardless of how wonderful you are and how sweet you are and how much you want to be their friend and all that good stuff. So many of you are so good at creating those relationships. Remember, in business, there's a certain level of distrust. And so you have to prove your points so that buyers understand that what you're saying is not based on what's good for you. It's based on what's good for them to accomplish the goals that they have asked you to help them accomplish. And so I want to just show you in the MLS an example, right? This is my little fun box that anyone who's ever come to class for Know Your Numbers knows that this is one of my favorite parts of the MLS. When you run stats and then ask the stats to show you the stats in this little box, what you get is a snapshot. This is Norwalk between $400,000 and $500,000 in the last 60 days. Norwalk between $500,000 and $600,000 in the last 60 days. Please note, the average has crept up from 99 to 100% to 104% of asking. However, the high one is 114% of asking, right? You can then go back and find the one that was 114%. I think it was this one, list of 379, sale of 431. So if you're selling a house that's listed for $400,000, you can show the clients this particular property and say, look, the last time something like this sold in Norwalk, it's not about the dollars, it's about percent. It sold for 14% over the asking price. And this just closed last month. And please note that since these closings I'm showing you, the market has only gotten more difficult. So if you think that it's coincidence that in the fall we were at 99 to 100%, now we're at on average 104 to 105% with spikes of 114 in the MLS, just wait till all the stuff that's closing now actually closes, or pending now actually closes, and you're going to see that continue to climb. So the last thing I want to give you, and then we'll open it up to questions and conversation, is the analogy of the plane taking off or the plane landing. Because it's a perfect analogy to help you explain what's going on in the market to your buyers. So when you're showing them comps, right, you have to utilize the plane taking off. And that plane taking off, here, I want to make sure you can see my hands, so I'm going to just make myself really enormous right now. There we go. Ah, it's a lot of Rick. So, so here you have the plane. The plane is going down the runway, right? It's about to take off. The snapshot in time that you have for comps to help your buyers make a decision is taken, boom, right here. Just as at that moment, the plane is about to lift off. Now, what happens when the plane continues to take off? It gains altitude, right? Usually pretty quickly. And so by the time the comps, the snapshot in time that the comps gave you was down here, right? Boom, snapshot in time. You're looking at these comps. However, 2 weeks later, or a month later, the markets continued to do this. So now where is your snapshot in time? It's fallen behind, right? You're not keeping up with the airplane. The snapshot in time now for the front of the plane is up here. Do you see the difference between those 2 points? You can't make offers based on the comps because we still have an increasing marketplace. We have appreciation going on. It's the shift book in reverse, right? This conversation also happens to work when markets are in decline. Our market is not in decline right now. Right? And so as things continue to climb, you have to help them see that the last comp, even though it was 114% over the asking price, that was a month ago. And the planes continued to climb. So 14% doesn't cut it anymore. Now we've got to be at 18 or 20 or 25% over asking price in order to win. I'm talking about what we have to do to win, right? And I'm not talking to you about what you have to do to win. I'm talking to you about what you have to have conversations with your buyers to make sure that they win. Now, they all may not be interested in winning at that level. Let's have this quick conversation. That's a lead generation issue, not a buyer issue. When you're lead generating at a high enough level that if you have buyers who say, I'm not willing to do all those things that you just said, well, then you are prepared to say, I totally get it. knowing that that's what it takes to win in today's marketplace, what are your thoughts about stepping out for a few months? But many of you won't say that, because if you don't sell those people a house, there's nothing coming behind it. That's why I say to you, that's a lead generation issue. That's not a buyer issue, and it's not a market conditions issue. You've got to continue to fill the pipeline so that as you consult with people, I don't think there's anybody on this call who wouldn't agree that right now you have buyers who you're putting in your cars or meeting at properties who really shouldn't be looking at properties, because they're not prepared to do what it takes to win. Right? And the best thing for them is to sit it out for a bit, monitor it from the sidelines. Let's see what happens. But we don't do that. And here's the danger of not doing that. Instead of 25 offers on a property, which only continues to embolden sellers and continue to drive prices up, what if the seller only had 4 or 5 offers? Because those are the ones that are willing to really fight today, and everybody else stayed home. Do you think that we'd start to solve some of the issues that the buyers themselves are struggling with if they would choose to step out for a little while? They're just creating more of the spiral up that they're fighting against. But without being part of the winning circle, and without being willing to step out, they're just making it worse. And which kind of means by default, we're all making it worse. Just consider that. Whew. Debbie asked me a question yesterday, and then I'll stop talking. She said, yeah, are we just doing an exercise, or are we showing up to win? And that's a question that I'm asking you, but I think it's a really great question to sit and have a conversation with your buyers. Are we just doing this as an exercise? Like, are we practicing writing offers? Or are we showing up to win? Because showing up to win looks very different than what some of you are sitting down and writing on a piece of paper. And so I just want to be as kind of between the eyeballs as I possibly can for your buyer's sake and for your sake, so that we understand what it takes to play on the buy side today and to win on the buy side. What if you set a clear goal? What if you set a clear goal of, from today forward, I am going to write offers that win 80% of the time? My hope is that when you look at the offer that you're about to submit, it may send you back to the buyers. Are you comfortable enough saying to a buyer, okay, with all due respect, Tom and Sally, I love you. And because I love you, I have to say to you that, like, this is not going to cut it. And here's the proof. Here's why. Here's the intel that we have. Here's what other clients are experiencing. Here's the feedback we have from sellers. Here's what the MLS says. Here's what our mortgage partners are telling us about what they're seeing. We've done the research for you. This isn't going to cut it. And by submitting the offer just to see what happens anyway, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, my fear is that you're actually pushing the market forward faster, falsely, which doesn't help you in the short term. Right? All right. That's the information I wanted to deliver to you. I hope it was helpful. Let's open it up for questions, comments, concerns. What else are you using successfully? And here's what I don't want to do, just to set the stage. What I don't want to do is one by one go through and have you say, well, I had this one that actually did get accepted, and it was only 7% over the asking price. Therefore, everything we've discussed must be wrong. Everybody has the anomaly. I get it. That's not the point of today. Am I being too direct today? Sorry, I'm just all juiced up about helping you win, right? So, but again, everybody has the anomaly. So we don't need to hear about the anomalies. What we need to hear about are the success stories about what you're using to make sure you win. I know the information I just gave you is accurate. I've spent 2.5 weeks collecting it and compiling it and looking through the trends. So I know that it's accurate. Kathy Schmidt, talk to us.
Okay. I actually have a few points. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think all of this first initially starts with your buyer consultation and your standards, really.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Okay. I've gotten buyers that have had other agents show them properties without signing a buyer agency agreement, and they're not their brokers' listings, it's other brokers' listings, which is illegal. They're not signing buyer agency agreements. They don't have a pre-approval. So, okay, before I put anybody in my car, so to speak, to show properties, there's a buyer consultation, and I have standards of buyer agency agreement signed, even if it's for my own listing, and a pre-approval. And you have to have those standards in place, especially in this market, because you don't have time. If your buyer sees a property that they like, you don't have time to go, okay, you got to get pre-approved. Okay, oh yeah, call this lender. You don't have time for that. And to your point about the price range, they can be pre-approved up to $600,000, and they're looking at properties that are $650,000. That doesn't do you any good. You've been wasting gas, you've been wasting time. They're getting frustrated, you're getting frustrated. So for me, it really starts with your standards and your professionalism and your buyer consultation. And I'll tell you that will, number one, have you stand out from the rest right from the get-go. You're not saying, oh, what property you want to see? Let's go. No, I don't do that. And you know what? If you're not going to do that with me, I'm sure there's a lot of agents out there that are willing to break the law and work with you. Go at it, So I think that's number one. I think that the pre-approval is also, when you're in the multiple offer situation, some of my clients have actually gone through further than just a pre-approval. They're going full underwriting, okay? So that when I submit the offer, your relationship with the listing agent is so important, because again, you have to stand out from the rest when you're presenting an offer. Don't just email an offer, call them and tell them, I'm sending you an offer. Here are the key things that you need to know about. But even before you submit the offer, you should be calling the listing agent and saying, I'm going to be submitting an offer. Tell me about what the seller is looking for. We want to make sure that we accomplish the goals of the seller most importantly. So they're going to be, you take good notes on that. Listen to what the listing agent is saying. It's all about price. It's all about move date. They don't really want to close until, June 1st. You need to have all of that information so that you can achieve the goals of the seller and what's most important to them. Sometimes it's not always about price. Sometimes it's about the terms, right?
So Kathy, I'm gonna ask you to put a pin just for half a second.
Yep.
So what Kathy just said is crazy important. If you're not doing all that research ahead of time, you're cheating your buyers out of an opportunity, right? Because the only way for you to know what closing date to put on a document is if you've asked when the seller wants to close. The only way for you to know whether or not the seller needs to stay in the house for 60 days to find a new property, right, is if you've called and asked. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've noticed that this information that seems all important to the seller is not very often not indicated in the listing. And so if you're not calling and asking and having a conversation, you're doing your buyers a massive disservice, because things that might be easy for them to say yes to and move up the list of offers being considered as the winner, you didn't find out about and they didn't put in. So those conversations are crazy important up front. Continue, Kathy, sorry.
That's okay. The other, again, the listing, your presentation to the listing agent is very important. So one of the other things that I do as a listing agent, I make sure that the seller is putting everything on that property condition disclosure, so that there's no confusion. There's no, they know how old the boiler is, they know how the air conditioning condenser is, they know everything about the house. So one of the things that I do point out to the listing agent is that, oh, by the way, my buyers and I have gone through the property condition disclosures very carefully. They understand that the boiler is old, the roof is old. They understand all of that. When we're submitting the offer, we're not going to beat you up on the inspections. Thank you very much that we already know the condition and the age of those things. What you're saying subliminally is that we're not going to give you a hard time about the inspections if you're going through one with one. Again, it's all about making the life easy of the listing agent and the seller. So I've got a pre-approved buyer, gone through underwriting. I've asked the question what the seller is looking for. I've given her or he a positive impression of my buyer, that we're not going to give you a hard time, but you really need to have standards. And that to me is the foundation of how you are going to behave later with the presentation of your offer. All of the other elements that you've talked about, Rick, in terms of price and waiving the inspection contingency, that is all part of the presentation of the offer, in my opinion, but all of it starts with what happens before you present the offer.
Sure. Well, the truth is, you don't get to a lot of the strategies that we went through in that big long list unless you've had the conversation up front.
Correct.
Right? Because if you wait until writing the offer to start having those conversations, all that feels like an ambush to the buyer, and they duck and cover and go underground. It's no wonder, because it is an ambush, right? That should have been discussed before you even set foot in the first property, to make sure they were ready to go to war in the arena that we have today, right? And if you're not describing things like that today, I mean, I know it sounds dramatic, but Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, are you ready to go to war? Are you ready to win? Because it is, you have to fight out there in order to claw your way to the top. Karen Fry, what do you got first?
Well, I'm just confirming, I think, or asking, we talked about pre-approval, and I have sellers who keep coming with pre-qualification, and I've told them that in this market is not enough. Which you said.
Yeah, so what I would say is where's Karen? Is Karen still on the call, or Tammy? I saw you both.
I'm here.
Right?
Hi.
And so the reality of today, if you're going with financing, right, which in and of itself can be problematic, right? Some of you are losing to cash, which is why one of the strategies is have a conversation with your buyers around, can you be a cash buyer and then do delayed financing? Maybe they can borrow $500,000 from grandma or whatever, and you'll have to talk to Karen and Tammy to make sure that it's all done the right way. But maybe they can borrow. Well, if they're paying cash, actually,
Gift.
Tammy
You're
and
gifting.
Karen are out.
No,
So-
but you're gifting that money, please.
Right, so they're getting it to pay cash, and then they're doing delayed financing after the fact, so they can still have their mortgage, but they pay cash first. I know not everybody can do that. However, my question to each of you is, have you asked? Do you have those conversations, or are you just assuming that nobody has a way to pay cash? You don't have to answer, because I know what the answer is, right? So my thought would be, make sure that you're always asking that question. Maybe they can pull money out of a home they're currently living in to go and buy the property cash, and then do all the jumbo financing on the back end, right? I just had to do that myself. I had to convert 2 purchases into cash purchases, and I had to figure it out on the back end about how do I make some of this cash available in order to win, close, and then do the financing after the fact. If they can't find a way to pay cash, and they are in that financing world, you've got to talk to Karen and to Tammy to get them in. I call them TBD loans. I'm sure that they're not called that. So Karen and Tammy can tell you what they're actually called. But to me, a TBD loan is go through all the underwriting you possibly can ahead of time, so that all you need is an address and a value to plug in at the end, and then the appraisal pops up and you're done. So these are far more qualified buyers than just somebody who had income and assets and credit checked.
I have another question. In the pre-approval, you are approved for X amount of dollars. If they make an offer, is it a good idea to have the top dollar that they approved for? In the past, it was always write the amount in that they want to offer, but that has changed now. So would it be a good idea to write the amount in that they're the top amount that they approved for versus the offer price?
Well, to me, I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing nowadays, because you only typically get one bite at this apple, right? You're writing the offer
Oh,
at the
right.
absolute max.
We'll get a counter. Yes. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So if you'd like to buy the house for $525, but your offer is going to be $625, the whatever financing letter should just say $625, because if you write in a $550 offer, that you're not coming back for, hey, do you have more money? They're just moving on with the people who started with a 6. Right. That's one more thing. Thank you, Karen, for bringing that up, because that's another thing that if you aren't aware or haven't been experiencing, please note, your buyers are not entitled to a counter. And some of you are still writing offers as if they're going to come back to you within 24 hours and say, here's what we have, here's what we're going to do, here's how it's going to work, tidy up your offer, anything else you want. No, you have one shot. One shot. So write your absolute best offer the first go around. And then if they come back and say, now we want these 5 people to give us that phrase that I hate, highest and best, right? By 5 o'clock tomorrow, well, then the buyers have an opportunity to either stay where they are because they made their best offer, or decide they're going to make adjustments on top of that. But I would say, Karen, the answer to that is it's one letter, because it's one offer.
Right. Got it.
It's one time. There's some stuff going on in the chat that I wanted to just address, and that is appraisals, right? Let's talk a little bit about appraisals. Man, I'm going to tell you what, I don't know if I'm just, no. I find, this is me heading into opinion land now, right? I find that our industry as a whole worries more about appraisals than we do anything else. And what I'm here to tell you today, when you work for a buyer, the answer is discuss it up front about what may happen with shooting for the moon offers, and make sure that the buyers are willing to figure out how to make it work on their end, which means they have additional cash to close the gap and are willing to buy a property that doesn't appraise, or step out. Because yes, things sometimes don't appraise, but as an industry, we make that the seller's problem. And guys, in today's market, the seller doesn't care. They have 17 other offers that they'll go to that will go ahead and buy it without the appraisal, or their cash, and they don't have to worry about an appraisal. So again, we're back to the question isn't how do we solve the appraisal problem? The question is, what conversations are you having with your buyers to make sure the buyers understand that it might not appraise, and here are the strategies you need to use to solve that issue so you can still go buy that house? Or have the buyer simply recognize that in this scenario, I completely lost my train of thought. Isn't that weird? I'm sure it was something brilliant I was going to say. Have the buyer understand that this is the market we're in, and they don't. The appraisal is simply one person's opinion over here. Yes, it happens to be their bank's opinion, and yet there were 17 offers, And so just because they won, there's at least 4 or 5 other people who were pretty close to their number. So there were 4 or 5 other people who were willing to pay that much anyway, which, just as an aside, drives me berserk when appraisers don't take that into consideration. And some of them do, many of them won't, right? Because they're not closed. I get all of that. However, make sure that as a buyer's agent, the appraiser for your buyers knows that they won out of 25 offers for this particular property, or out of 7 offers for this property, or out of 19 offers for this property. Because even if the appraiser isn't using that like a market adjustment, I'm not even sure if they can do market adjustments anymore, but if they're not using some kind of a market adjustment, if they have a range in mind based on the comps, and they know that 24 other people were battling for this house, they're more likely to go on the higher end of the range than perhaps the lower end of the range. So again, communicate as much information as you possibly can to make sure that you are continuing to win. Len, and then Debbie.
Thank you. So your point about having that conversation with the buyer is well taken, really important. And what I recommend, if you hadn't said this earlier on, is that when you submit your offer, you make one of the terms that you will cover whatever that shortfall, if it is a shortfall in the appraisal, the buyer will cover it. So it takes the concern away from the seller as to what might happen if it doesn't appraise. And sometimes there needs to be a limit on that, 30,000, 50,000, whatever it is. But if you have it as one of your terms when you submit your offer, it steps you ahead of all other equal offers. It's really important to put that in there.
Yeah, yeah. And to Len's point, the biggest reason you need to do that, it absolutely communicates well to the other side. But the biggest reason you need to do that is so that you and your buyers know how they're going to handle that if and when it pops up, right? Because here's the thing, when things don't appraise, all of a sudden everyone's hair is on fire, right? And Karen and Tammy get these calls as if they were the ones who didn't appraise the property well, right? And so they're trying to put out the hair on your head. They're trying to put the hair out, the fire out on the head of the buyers. They're calling each other saying, why are we getting the blame for this? We didn't do the appraisals, right? And at the end of the day, the simplest form of dealing with appraisal issues is to have a conversation when you start with the buyers. And then I'm going to suggest you have a second conversation when you're writing the offer. So have the conversation in the consult, lay it all out, have some strategies built. And then when you're writing the offer, let's just remind the buyers, hey, remember that conversation we had about appraisals? Now that we're writing an offer that's $50,000 or $80,000 or $100,000, 20% over the asking price, let's just revisit that. Just so you and I are clear about the strategy we're going to use. And oh, by the way, if you're clear with that strategy, I'm going to write that strategy into the offer so that the listing agent and the sellers know how committed you are to buying this house. How does that work? Great, let's right away. Right? Debbie Orr.
I'm going to tag on to appraisals just for a second. And it is, as the agent, whether you're the seller's agent or the buyer's agent, you must go into the appraisal with an attitude that this house is going to appraise. And here's how. And if you're working with the buyer, pull those comps. And here's the thing, you can't go low. You just have to go high and see how close you can get it to work out, because you'll be surprised at the comps that you're going to come up with in most cases, I would say. The old way of being objective don't work. You got to go high, plain and simple. My aha through listening to all of this is the last 12 years have been buyer markets, right? It was a total buyer market for 12 years. And what we're talking about right now is the flip side of the conversation that we've had with the sellers for a dozen years. No joke. For example, buyers today, I don't want to overpay. For the last 12 years, what have the sellers been saying? I don't want to lose money. Are you prepared to do whatever it takes to get your home sold, or what's your plan B? Mr. Buyer, today, are you prepared to do whatever it takes to get this house purchased, or what's your plan B? It's the same story. And it's all about what it takes to get the transaction done. While you were doing your preamble, I went through all of the towns that I track for the maximum over the price list to sale ratio and the average. The least maximum was Reading. How surprising is that? And it was 18% over the asking price. The most over the asking price was Bethel, and it was, sit down, hold your seat, 206% over asking price. Holy smokes. And all of the averages are over 100%. And most of the, Weston is up for the maximum 150%. 150%, 134%, 126%. Those are the numbers that you have to just show your peeps and say, are you prepared to play in this arena?
It's funny, somebody said to me the other day, I have these buyers who are looking for a bargain. What should I do? And I said, move on.
Yeah.
Looking for a bargain, come back in 2 years. I mean, for real. But here's my concern, is that this person was spending lots of time with this buyer to try and find them this bargain. Guys, it's okay to say, interestingly enough, in our market currently, bargains don't exist. First of all, can you define a bargain? If you're defining a bargain as maybe only between 10 and 15% above the asking price with terms that waive all of the whatevers, well, then maybe we should be talking. If a bargain for you is 5% below the asking price or below market, that just doesn't exist here. They might as well ask you to show up on a unicorn to show them properties. It's the same request, right? I don't know any of you who ride unicorns to the, I know the Schmitz have a unicorn, but they keep that unicorn in the garage most of the time. They do not use it for business purposes. It's a personal use unicorn only, right? And so, and most of us don't even have the unicorn. Let me say this, and then I'll go to John and Mike and Kim. Remember that some of you need to think a little bit more linearly. And what I mean by that is, if you don't win the house, the appraisal doesn't matter. I'm going to say that one more time. If you don't win the house, the appraisal doesn't matter. And some of you get so concerned and wrapped up in trying to troubleshoot the appraisal issue before you've even won the house that it allows you and the buyers to make an offer that doesn't win. So then what was the point of having the whole appraisal conversation? You don't have a house to buy. So think linearly. Step one, market conditions. Step two, write the offer based on those market conditions. Step three, win the house. Do whatever it takes to win the house. Step four, figure out what you have to do if stuff pops up along the way to the closing. Right, but the appraisal issue is after you win. It's not before you win. John Nygro, what do you have for us?
Hey, Rick. So just wanted to kind of add on to the, the offer presentation and making it the most comforting for the seller. I had a lot of buyers in the past who wanted to put deadlines on the offer that we're giving, particularly for, day one or day two of it being on market. And I usually advise them against that unless it's a really kind of knock your socks off type of offer. I found that it does more harm than good. And a lot of sellers right now, even if we put in a very strong offer initially, they want to give it, a good 3, 4, 5 days on the market. And I've had a couple recent closings, including one that's occurring as we speak, where we had to wait almost an entire week for a response to our offer. But it would have really kind of come off a little bit off-putting if right from the get-go we said, give us an answer within 24 hours. And then likewise, I had a listing where we had an offer come in with an FHA loan for $5,000 over listing price that said, you have 24 hours to get back to us. And the sellers had a bit of a chuckle at that. So in I'd say 99% of scenarios, it's best not to do that whole feet to the fire timeline, or time limit on your offers, and just put it out there and let it ride.
Yeah, that's a great thought, John. And I couldn't agree more in that, guys, buyers are doing anything and everything they can do to try and feel somehow in control, right? And if I were you, I would help them understand that the control that they have is that they are in control of the offer and the terms that they make. They don't get to dictate terms. They don't get to feel entitled about I should be able to get it for less, or I should get treatment in 24 hours, right? You need to, all those things that might come up, you need to help them understand, yeah, you know what, that's a great strategy in a completely different market. Today, however, sellers are not tolerating that. And so I'm curious, does that make sense for you to put in a term in your offer that sellers are just simply not tolerating? Great point, John. Thank you. Mike and Kim.
So who you use as your lender wins deals too. So, that has won a lot of deals for us because, a lot of our clients want to use their big banks. And quite honestly, those are the ones we've had the most problems with the appraisal shorts, with appraisals being, wrong. And so a lot of times I have a conversation with the listing agent, have you used this lender before? Do you have a comfort with you? Do you have a relationship? Would you like to call them? And sometimes it's I haven't and I'm not. Well, who do your buyers use? Like so that conversation is a huge win also, because again, it's building that rapport and relationship with the listing agent. And it's also leaning into what their clients would smile upon in terms of who we might use as a lender. Because quite honestly, rates can be rates, but if a listing agent is looking at one lender over another to win a deal, so that's something that we look at too.
Yeah, that's a great reminder, right? And I'll say the same thing about what Kim just said as what John said. I think it was, or whoever was before John, right? That if you don't win the house, 0.1% doesn't matter because you don't have a mortgage payment, right? So win the house doing whatever you have to do by using mortgage partners that know what they're doing and can help you get the deal done, rather than allowing buyers to make silly decisions based on 1/8 of a point, right? Because if they lose, it doesn't matter. Win the house, then worry about the mortgage payment. Well said, Kim. I like your hat. Donna Gilbert.
Hi, and so this is a great conversation, by the way. It's really powerful. Everything that has been said are absolutely the strategies that you have to use these days and have, frankly, for the last 2 years, and it's not getting better. Here's 2 other things that kind of been covered, but really I'd like to bring them to the.
Oh, Donna, we lost you. You're muffled.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, sorry. I think I'm on my phone, so it's a little weird. So 2 things that I wanted to really hone in on, even though it's kind of been touched on. One is the relationship that you're going to have with the listing agent. You must establish that. You must. And more than just finding out what would be their scenario. And I have said to them, what is your perfect offer? Besides price, tell me what other things would be absolutely perfect for your client. I've used the term, what is it that keeps your client up at night about this? What is their fear? So I can cover that. And here's the other thing, that we're blessed because of all the training and the skills that we have, that we bring to the table from being at Keller Williams. I also help them with language. So what is your plan if you have multiple offers? What are you going to do? And I've had listing agents tell me, well, wait, I don't have one. Well, you know what I found helpful? And explain what, so maybe you're going to have highest and best by a certain time. Maybe you're going to, would you like my spreadsheet that I use? I show up like his or her very best friend. And someone said, you show up like nothing will go wrong. I actually tell them If you select us, I promise you we'll close. I mean, you have to use guerrilla tactics. You've got to say things that you assume you're demonstrating in your skill. Just say them, just tell them. You talk about this all the time, Rick. With our clients, we want to show up and be the one. Do it with the listing agent. Show up and be the friggin' one. And yeah, your offer needs to have every I dotted, every T crossed, everything. That goes without saying. But show up as the most helpful. My hair's not going to catch on fire. I'm on your side person that you possibly can be. Here's the second thing, and this one's shorter. We as agents, we have to believe what the market actually is. We have to believe it. I think sometimes people come in with well, we'll kind of put this in and maybe it'll work. It's that 5% over that 10%. No, you have to really, truly believe what the market is telling you so you can tell your clients, so you can get your clients to behave the way they need to win.
Yeah, agreed. Well done. Well done. Well done. Thank you. I think you're calling in from Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you for dialing in internationally. So we've got Debbie and Tammy and Lydia, and then we're going, because I know we're over time. So we have those 3 more comments or questions. I want to leave you with one last idea, and I'm going to get your thoughts on it. So if you can hang tight for a minute or 2, that'd be great. Debbie, go ahead.
What I'm going to offer now is perspective. On our business builders today, we talked about the question, I don't want to overpay. And Amy Mosley was on and did a little role play with me. And one of her points was prices in Fairfield County for the last 12 years have been depressed. Would you all agree with that? I mean, all you have to do is look at the lines. They were flat lines, 12 years of that. So today's prices are really just normalized pricing. And to add on to that, the last time they were at this level was what year?
2005.
2005, 2006. At that time, the interest rate was 6% plus, was between 6 and 6.5%. So right now, we have the best affordability in the last 12 years. When do you think that's going to happen again?
Massive point, right? And Gabby put something in the chat before that goes along with what Debbie just said. At these interest rates, everything's a bargain, right? So if you have people looking for bargains, great, just go and buy. You have people struggling, paying top dollar, paying over asking. Affordability is at its best spot in the last dozen years, right this very minute, even with things going crazy. Right. So use these kinds of conversations to help those buyers understand exactly the opportunity they have right now. And for those of them who are boo-hoo-hooing and wow, right, you got to move them off of that. Right. Let's look at the opportunity. Tammy and then Lydia.
So, Karen and I have a text conversation going on back here. And I'm like, by the way, have any of your appraisals come in low? And she's had one. And I've had, in the last 18 months, I've had 3. One was about $10,000. One was a big one. It was about $30,000. And one was about $15,000. And Karen can jump in if she's got something to add to that. Every single one of them, we were able, this was before appraisers kind of caught up. So we haven't had any real big giant appraisal gaps because everyone seems to be aware of what's going on. So when I talk to your listing agents, I will tell them in the unlikely event, and when I'm talking to the buyers, I will tell them in the unlikely event that the appraisal comes in low, here's our strategy. And guess what? You have to come to money with less money, not more. Kind of crazy how that works out. So if your lenders aren't having those conversations with them ahead of time, I don't even understand it. I've seen pre-approvals now. I've seen people who are calling me with trying to put in offers like the day of, and they've never been pre-approved before. So how you guys are letting your people pick lenders still at this stage of the game is beyond me, but that's my soapbox. So I just wanted to tell you, appraisals are not coming in low, like not any more frequent than we've had them in the past.
Exactly. Jeremy's right. And also you just, our communication, when we send a pre-qual letter, a pre-approval letter, whatever letter you want to call it, with the offer, we are calling that agent, that selling agent, and telling them how strong an offer and a buyer that you have. And it really does help. It's not in every instance because nothing helps 100% of the time, but it does help. And if we stand behind it and we come forward, it says a lot for who we are and what we believe in and the type of work that we do.
And great points, both Tammy and Karen. I want to reiterate one of them. Nothing works 100% of the time, right? And that's what you as business owners need to recognize, that the thing that you did last time might not work this time. You might have to do something different, something more, something less, something more, something bolder, something that makes everybody a little more uncomfortable. Nothing works 100% of the time, right? Lydia.
Yeah, so I've had buyers that have been priced out of the Stamford and Norwalk markets that we've had to go further out in Stratford and Bridgeport and areas that I'm really not accustomed to going to. And one thing that I know is like those markets there, the pricing is at what Norwalk was 6 months ago. I mean, just to tell you how prices have jumped. And they've been very serious buyers. Every time we've gone out, they've selected a house, we've made offers, we've lost 4 offers. They've gone up as much as they could. We've gone 16% over asking with no inspection, still lost. I've had listing agents come back to me to say, well, my client really wants a guarantee, because there were offers that I didn't think that it would appraise at all. We made the offer anyway. And they've said the sellers want a guarantee. And so they didn't want the contingency of an appraisal on there, and asked us, can your buyers guarantee that they will get this price regardless? And of course, my buyers were not in that condition, were not in that position. So one of the things that I have to say is I've learned, because I've been schooled out there, that, and in terms of having time to talk to people and so forth, honestly, these houses have been going in a day. They have been holding open houses and they have best and final by the next day. And it's just been, a crazy market out there. But I've been schooled in terms of, you shouldn't really use the standard purchase agreement. They want you to go straight to contract. And so they're saying to go out and use the MLS standard contract. So I would advise people, if they can use that strategy and have their buyers talk to the attorneys up front, just to have them lined up to say, like, what kind of terms can I put on this standard contract? And, to go in, because they have only 5 days to pull out of that contract. That's another strategy, and that's helped me. So I just wanted to give that tip.
Yeah, those are 2 great points, Lydia. Thank you for putting them out there. Sometimes you have to change the geographic area, right? If numbers are going up where people wanted to live, well, then you find them someplace else where the numbers are lagging. They still have to play the same game, because I think the game is being played all over, but they may be able to play in a lower arena, a lower price point, which gets them the house they want, so they can overbid and then do those guarantees and the whatnots for in numbers that still make sense for them. And the second piece that Lydia put out there, use the 4-page contract. For me, my advice to everybody within the sound of my voice is stop playing real estate from 5 or 10 years ago. Offers to purchase agreements, stop using them. Just write contracts, because that's what people are looking for. It's what sellers want. It's what listing agents want most of the time, right? Just write contracts. If someone rejects it because they want on a different form, well, then go and give it to them on a different form, but write the contract first. All right, guys, again, I know we were out of time and Lydia was to be last. Dee, I saw that you raised your hand. Something really quick? You're muted.
So to that point, and going back to what Donna said, go talk to the listing agent before you write anything and ask them, because while I was on this call, I had to rewrite one. So save yourself some time, get all the information you need from the listing agent and ask them, because I did a standard form contract and had to redo it to a purchase agreement. So, and it had to be in by noon. So I made all those deadlines happen while I was on this call and listening with one ear. So there you go. Just ask all those questions up front. Donna mentioned it, and I think Kathy did. Get all your information as best you can so that you can represent your client to the best.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for spending time with each other today, because the information that's been shared, I think has been awesome. I will we'll have this recording link sent out to you, so you'll have it right in your email. It'll be done by tomorrow morning, perhaps later tonight if we can get that done fast. Let me leave you with this thought. I'm serious when I say to you, challenge yourselves to set a goal that 80% of your buyer offers will be accepted as winners, 80%. And then start making decisions about what you need to do, what you need to learn, what you need to practice. If it were me in the market today and I was struggling getting offers accepted, I would find somebody or somebodies on this Zoom call, and I would start practicing the words that go along with all the stuff that we talked about today. Because some of you know what the strategies are, but without the practice, you're not getting it out, or not getting it out well in front of the buyer. And so it lands a little flat, or you're nervous about it and it doesn't come out at all, right? How do I know this? Because I'm like you, right? We're all human, and we all respond the same way to new or changed information. So find somebody to just practice it with, and keep practicing it back and forth. Set yourself that target of winning at least 80% of the time, which for most of you is a jump of 50 or 60% right now, right? And then do the things, write out the things that you need to do, learn, and know who you need to be in order to achieve that goal, and start turning the ship, start making those adjustments. I promise you, if you will take each of these things one at a time, practice, start implementing better buyer consults, utilizing this long list of strategies, being really clear and firm with buyers, helping them along the process, asking them to take some of the responsibility of making these decisions, you will win more of the time. You'll start to feel better, you'll be more confident, and that will just transfer into the next buyer that you work with, because you just won the last one, and you'll win more and more and more. I can't wait to start seeing all of your successes. If you have any questions, or if I can be of any help, including, I am more than happy. You want to write an offer and shoot it to me and say, what would you do differently? I'm happy to look at it. Most of us don't have time for me to look at it that way, but if you want me to look at it, I'm happy to look at it. So I'll ask questions around it that you can then ask your buyers. Whatever we need to do to help you win at a higher level, we are willing to do. As soon as I get all of that information back tomorrow from the listing agents, I will compile that and get that back out to you as well, so that you can use that in your conversations. I hope this was helpful. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. 1 o'clock is our new marketing portal. You want to check that out, because that's an awesome tool for you. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon.